Hey everyone, so today I wanted to give a little Blazor tutorial on the parameter attribute capture unmatched values and where this is handy and where you would want to use it. So essentially, like a lot of you that are aware that are kind of going through and like learning Blazor the past 5 or 6 years, ever since it was invented, from Mr. Amazing Dude, Steve Sanderson. Amazing is like an understatement for his contribution to almost everything dev. And basically, like when you have a component, whether that's a page or like a routable, like a page is just a component that's routable, or just a component, you have these parameters, right? So this is the one, I guess, overload or in the parameter attribute in the method, you can actually add this capture unmatched values. So I'm going to just open up a new Visual Studio, and I'm going to go to create project here and type in Blazor, and I'm just going to hit the WebAssembly one. I'm going to just say this is capture unmatched values, CUV. Sorry, capture. I thought it was going to be a different acronym, but anyways, so capture unmatched values project cov. I thought the V was something else for a second when I was like mentally thinking about what the acronym would be, but so that's fine. We don't need any of that stuff. It's just to show. And we'll move this over here. All right, so here we have this and kind of good to go. So basically, like let's just debug it just to see what the default .NET 6 pre-7 template looks like. Man, Windows 11 is quite aggressive with the snapping of the windows. Kind of like it. All right, so we have this, the counter, fetch data. Okay, cool. So let's just close this. And what we want to do is let's just add it to, so we have the counter page and the index page. Let's just put it here. So we'll get rid of the survey. And we'll just basically click save. We'll do a new component and we'll just add one here, new empty file. That's a great add-on from Mads Christensen, if I'm saying it right, but he's like, I think the number one like person that's put out the most extensions, like by any single able-bodied person. If not, the like Mr. Extension himself, probably the most renowned Microsoft, or sorry, guy that works with Microsoft or directly or indirectly. But yeah, he's a kind of a, like if you watch any of Mads stuff, he is a genius that can explain things to you in such an easy way to follow. It's, yeah, check out any of his videos for sure. Mads Christensen, I think with a K. So I'm going to say this one will be, let's say, label, let's say app label dot razor, and I'm just going to copy this and say add file, and then I'll add a code behind here. So I'll go again, new empty file, and I like to have the code behind for this stuff. Kind of, it's, you know, a little nicer in my opinion, but to each their own. I know a lot of people just like to have it all in the one file, but in order to get this work, we're going to have to do a partial class. Partial. All right, and we have the file scope namespaces, so it's a little cleaner. So basically, let's say, for example, we just have a label, which is an HTML element, and we'll just say, okay, so first off, let's say you have a label component, right? And let's give it a parameter, and that's going to be public, let's say label value. Yeah, maybe we'll just do text public string text get set. All right, and you don't like any of these usings, right? Nobody likes usings, right? So like I believe, and I asked some people from Microsoft and GitHub, there's no loss in performance if you just add a global using. So you can have any file at all that works. So I'm going to say new empty file, say global using.cs, and then we'll just say global, and then kind of add those as you go. So you don't have to do that. All right, so text. Now in here, I'm going to say, like, maybe you don't want to even write the HTML if the text isn't passed in. So I'm going to say if string is null or empty, is false. Okay, and then I'll just say in there, and then for some reason it doesn't wrap like that. I know they're working on stuff, but we'll say if, so I gotta pass in the text, right? So if another way to actually do this is with the pattern matching is like you can write that like that, or you can write a helper function extension, but you can also just say, because it's nullable, right? As you see here, that can be null. So what you can say is, if text is string, and I'll just say t, and then you can even say, and t dot, I guess, length is greater than 0. So what that does is if text is not null, meaning it's a string, it will store it into that variable t. And if t length is greater than, so already calling t dot length, it's not null, so you wouldn't have to do like something like that, because the pattern matching in this case will only, this does a null check, and if it is that, so it's like, this is saying if it's not null and it's a string, save in this variable, and then if the length is greater than that, then we're just going to write out text. In this case, if there's nothing else, and we're ignoring white space on every kind of like level that you have to do that. I think it's all by default, but there are some ways to trigger to like actually write out that white space, but I think it's off by default. So that will be the component, right? And one thing, working with code behinds, what I like to do, which is kind of nice, is kind of do like a split. So you don't have to keep toggling back and forth between the two files. And ideally in a perfect world for like working with components in Blazor or any SPA framework for the matter, you'd probably want to have something like a way to, I guess you can do a peek and do that, but having it so it's almost like a GUI editor where you could like hover over and kind of get to that in a pop-up that is, when you kind of like more of like a visual editor that things out there like Blender and not Unity, but what's it called? The other major gaming development tool that uses like, I think, C or anyhow, but yeah, like some kind of visual editor to link these things, and might be nice as a future evolution of that kind of stuff. So if we have this and we have that, we're going to go back to index here, and we're going to just say hello world. Maybe we'll even put the label in there, and we'll say, maybe that's actually confusing. We'll just say, here's a label. Here is a label, which I'm not even sure what that'll just write it right to the DOM, I guess. So whatever element that's in, might as well put it in something. So H4 and go end. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to say app label. and it has the text param, and we'll say I am app label. Okay. Okay, so that's a label. You don't have to do this part. It's on by default, which is maybe more good than, it's probably more good than bad, but I do like to, maybe there's a setting one day that we can opt into Visual Studio to like say, hey, I don't want self-closing tags on components because I want to like, the actual other angle bracket part of it, I want to self-close like this to save space. It might be a setting in tools options. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments below if there's a way to disable that for only components. I do like it for HTML elements. But here I have this. Now, let's say, for example, getting back to the whole purpose of this video, hopefully so far there's a lot of random takeaways in here for Blazor and C# in general. But hopefully you learn something. And if you do, honestly, hit the like and subscribe button, and that will definitely help me out. I do want to eventually move to more YouTube videos for a living if possible, but I don't really see that unless I post once a week, and I haven't been posting once a week in probably a year. So it seems like a pipe dream, but maybe, we'll see how it goes. Let's say this label here, you're like, oh, I need to add like a class, right? So, or like, let's say a style, like stuff into a style, right? That won't work, right? It'll say like, hey, I don't have a parameter for that, right? So going back to, maybe actually I could take this index razor, kind of put it down here, might be useful for people. And then we're kind of back to where we are. This is our top one, code behind, middle one, the UI or the HTML for the code behind, and the ultimate destination of this example. So basically you will get a runtime error if you type in style, like accent color. I don't even know what that one does. And let's just test that out to see if I'm not blowing smoke. But I do believe that as soon as you do that, it will just die, kind of thing. You have to look in the console, I think, unless you have error boundaries. Yeah, it doesn't find that. So I wasn't just blowing smoke. That is absolutely correct. So now, okay, fine. Like, it doesn't know what to do with it. I get it. But like one of the changes that I put into the Microsoft GitHub for .NET repo was that I want those errors, like these ones, at build time. Because, if we're not getting these at build time, it's just essentially JavaScript at that point with all these runtime errors, right? The whole point of, one of the biggest points with going to it like a compiled language is that you probably want to get away from runtime errors. You want to compile and find them there, thus leading to a more bug-free application and a better experience for everyone. So hopefully they kind of see that one and accept that. But they're historically pretty awesome, so I wouldn't doubt it. Now let's say, for example, I'm like, okay, typically with components, like, if you haven't heard of this particular feature and functionality, you would go back here, you would say, okay, I want parameter, I guess, let's say instead of style, actually we'll do style, string style, and we'll do this, right? And then here, actually undo that one, change that to this. Okay, and then over here, so obviously we want it if the text has something. We don't want to write styles to something that doesn't exist. And we'll just say style, if I can spell, and then we'll just say style, right? That's typically what you would do, like, one-to-one, right? That's fine. But like, what if there's something else in there that you want? Like, what if you wanted to say, the ID and the item ID or something, right? And then you would have to, you kind of get how that kind of adding individual parameters are less scalable than ideal, right? So, but there is something to be said about performance, and I I couldn't find the document. Originally when Blazor was coming out, they did have something in the docs that says, hey, if you use capture unmatched values, what I'm going to show you next, it does lead to like some performance degradation. So and it does make sense because of like what it's called is splatting, or attribute splatting. That if you kind of put whatever, it would maybe lead to more longer than normal wait time. So this is like a kind of a it's scalable. It's also a little bit faster than capture unmatched values, but you gotta kind of look at the situation and say, hey, is this a situation that I could benefit from capture unmatched values? And if it is, then use it. And so in this situation, I would just say, okay, for this one, I'm going to just say, attributes. Okay. And then this one in the parameter, I'll say, so capture unmatched values, like I can just put true here, I think, yeah, because it's the only one. Nope, I have to name it. So I'm going to say capture unmatched values equals true. Okay, now I'm going to say that. And then instead of doing style here, because that obviously won't work, that'll be actually, we're going to try that, because now that I did that, because this captures unmatched values, it should actually work. So like just to demonstrate that this will not get a console error, which I'm hoping it won't, but like web development on the fly without editing, you might be surprised, or you might still get whatever, but we'll see. Inspect. And right, so it's a wrong type. So okay, so yes, so bit my had my own foot in the mouth, but not for the same reason. So it's technically right. So but you just can't do it with the string. It has to be a dictionary of, I think it is string and then object. You could potentially just splat a whole bunch of keys, which would be the string, and byte arrays or whatever you want into it, right? So basically I'm gonna say come down here and let's just see if style doesn't affect a console error. Wish I could get the console to come up by default in certain situations. So I am an app label, there's no errors here, so good to go. And if we inspect this guy here, you'll see that there is a label, whatever, we put that in the index, that's the actual component, good to go. So going back to this, how do you use this? You can splat, I don't know. I mean, you could loop through them, but the way that you can do it, like I've seen in the documentation, is you see attributes equals attributes, and if you look at it, it'll say that it's an object, but I mean this is the right type that it needs. As you saw before, there was a console error about the type, and now there's not. And now what you can do is you should see that, I mean, I don't know how that will work. We can see, but normally what you'd want to do is something like this: style, color initial, and then, because this doing it this way, I don't know if the uppercase will, but this gives you the same IntelliSense that you would get, I believe, from normal HTML elements, right? So I can go style, and then I will say, let's say color, which give the font color. And what's a good color on black background? Maybe I'll say dark gray. Okay, and then we'll say background color is, let's say, Gainsborough, right? And then we'll also say what other things can we add to this? ID, okay? And then we'll say 1, 2, 3, right? So we're assuming that what happens here, and if this makes sense, like if I'm explaining it properly, and it makes sense to you, then I've done my job if I've helped you today at all understanding this Blazor concept. Because this is taking, like this happens automatically, which is nice. You don't gotta load up, this thing, which is nice. I mean, you could turn this off and load it like that, and I'm sure you could, loop through it and stuff. This is kind of just an easy way to do it. You have this, and then anything that's in the parameter, any of the props of this, right? So text is a parameter, style in this case is an unmatched, ID is an unmatched. So in this dictionary, you'll have two in the list, so to speak, or the dictionary, and the key will be style for the first row, and the second one will be ID, and these will be the values, right? The object in this case will be string for each. I'm pretty sure it'll be string for that, but we'll see. So we know it works. Let's see if we got a console error. And so yeah, style and ID, which is nice. Now, if you have some if you have some components out there that you want users to be able to, or developers, as in consumers of your components, to be able to put whatever they want and splat the attributes on any base level component like a div or a span or a list or whatever it is. This is a great way to do it. Like I said, I still believe that there is some performance degradation. So you're kind of the trade-off that you're getting is you'll get higher kind of scale depending on your situation at the cost of performance. So you have to ask yourself, like, is a lowering of scale better for you because you're going to get better performance by doing a one-to-one match? But yeah, pretty cool thing that you can do. Capture unmatched values, and you kind of could avoid those console errors. I mean, there's a whole way to turn those off in production for your Blazor WebAssembly and the SignalR version, the Blazor server one, entirely in production or staging, if you want users to not see those, and still log them to any kind of iLogger or database logging or third-party logging NuGet you want without sacrificing all that stuff. But less console errors the better in general. Like, there's more educated users out there all the time, and if they open the console and they see a bunch of red, generally they're going to think that, the application's not working. So my other advice to people making applications in production that don't need to be debugged in production would be to hide those console errors. They're not necessarily relevant to users. They just degrade the trust that the high functioning smart user would have for your application if they didn't see those type of red errors. Yeah, that's it. I just wanted to show you guys that quick way of using capture unmatched values. You can quickly Google that in Blazor, and pretty easy to use. And in certain situations, it could be perfect for you, and certain situations you might want to avoid it. So I hope that was helpful. See you guys next time.